Hi, hey, and hello there. Obi-Han here, and welcome back to the Comic High Ground. Alright, you already know what I'm about to talk about. You see it in the title. Xmen 97, episode, I think it's 8 now. Yeah. This episode was wild. And while I'm thinking about it, I did actually do a review for last week's episode, but I'm glad I didn't really post it because at the time when I did that review, I didn't know a lot about Bastion, and I had to do some research. So in that review, I kind of said something along the lines of, "Well, I don't know too much about Bastion, and let me do some research." But I'm glad that I waited because this episode here does pretty much give you a good description of Bastion, even though they slightly changed his origin. But Bastion is essentially a combination of Master Mode and one of the other Sentinels. I can't think of the Sentinel's name just because I'm trying to think of it now. I can't think of the Sentinel's name, the one that came from the future. It is like a combination of those two Sentinels, and basically it became a person. But in the cartoon, basically, is that the Nimrod, I think that's his name, Nimrod. Nimrod, the Sentinel Nimrod, basically came to the past again and pretty much merged with this human, and then they basically had a son named Bastion, basically with this woman. It's complicated, but not complicated. But in any case, yeah, that's Bastion's story. Bastion is like a really, really powerful dude. He has pretty much in the comics successfully, I think, gotten the best of the X-Men on more than one occasion. But him being on this show is a big deal, obviously. So that was like, the big reveal last week was that Bastion was technically the big bad of this season, and that not only that, but that he also had created the Master Sentinels, or the I think that's what they call the Master Sentinels, the human Sentinels. Okay, I'm sorry I can't think of like the exact terminology for what they're called right now, because like as you all know, I do these reviews at work or during the work day, so I'm trying to get the review put together and edited for you all so you can get it at least within the next day or so, or the day of the episode. But yeah, so aside from that, like I said, last week's episode, Rogue kind of went on her rampage, so that was cool to see. We saw Captain America, but honestly, this episode was where it's at because we also found out that Magneto was still alive last week as well. But this episode is where it's at because Cable came back. He's basically told Cyclops and the group what's going on, and they like, okay, we need to find Bastion. So Cyclops, of course, realizes in last week's episode that Cable is his son, and pretty much it's kind of like this awkward thing in this episode. But they kind of get everything together with that and pretty much focus on the mission. So Cyclops, Cable, and Jean track down Bastion's hometown so they can find any type of information or maybe locate Bastion. I think their main mission is to get Bastion, and we'll get to them in a second. But while they're away, we actually have Wolverine and Beast and everybody, and they're kind of studying the Trask Sentinel, because the humanoid Sentinel last week was a ball of a Trask, and he attacked them. Cable managed to save them, and now here we are. The reporter who had been pretty much flirting with Beast since like a few episodes ago, she's back, and she's kind of trying to talk to him and be nice and everything. So there's that. But then we cut back over to not Ball of a Trask, I'm sorry, but Bastion. And Bastion's basically talking to Sinister, and he's talking to the governor. She's not a governor, the politician. I can't ever think of her name. I'm bad with names, guys. But Valerie, that's her name, Valerie. He's talking to her about his plan and everything, and she's kind of like, look, she didn't know that what was going to happen in Genosha was going to be like that, and so she's kind of like all kinds of not with this plan right now. And he's Bastion has these lines that he says, and they're all I don't want to say complex, but he has one of these. He says these really intellectual things that, you kind of you really have to pay attention to it. And I'm being honest, I wasn't catching every word he said. I just got the gist of what he was saying, and he's basically kind of telling her, he's all but telling her, look, this is how it is. If we don't handle this now, then the mutants are gonna take over. Yada yada yada. And then he takes her to this location where they're creating these humanoid sentinels. And then at this point, he tells her that, yeah, they go through this process and then they don't remember it. And they're activated when they need to be activated. So essentially, she's like, well, you're turning civilians into weapons and they don't realize it. And they're like your pawns. And he's like, I mean, stuff happens. So at that point, Valerie's like, yeah, okay, you're crazy. She already had looked in Sinister's lab where they had Magneto hostage, because they had Magneto like pinned up on this platform and basically stripped him of his clothes and everything. So at this point, she already knows that she's gonna free Magneto. Now, while this is going on, we go back to Cyclops, Jean, and Cable. They had managed to get to Bastion's hometown, and they meet his mother, and soon find out that his mother is also one of the Sentinels. So they have to book it out of there, because again, at this point, the Xmen have not found a way to really fend off these humanoid Sentinels. Like they regenerate, and they pretty much are able to counter all of their abilities, it seems. And so once she activates, we start seeing Sentinels activate like all over the world. We get back to Wolverine and everybody, and we see that the reporter is actually one of these humanoid Sentinels. And she knocks the crap out of Beast, and then here we are, we're off to the races. So Wolverine is pretty much like, all right, let's go. And it's funny because he has this line where he says he's got to talk to Hank about his taste in women. And that was a funny line. This Wolverine is always really funny with these one-liners, but Wolverine's like going to town on these humanoid Sentinels, because again, they all activate and a lot of them converge on the X-Mansion. And there's a fight going on with Wolverine here and Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler gets his swords. And then we have Cyclops and everybody trying to kind of survive the Sentinels that are attacking them. So again, I say, Valerie, at this point, she's like, look, y'all have gone too far. Y'all have gone way too far. So she goes and frees Magneto. And when she does this, Sinister calls, because Bastion's not there at the time. Bastion is off basically basking in his victory. And when she does that, Sinister calls, is like, that damn woman, she let Magneto go. And Bastion's like, well, damn, too little too late, but it's still kind of annoying. So he returns, and she's still there. She didn't get away. But he just kind of wraps her up and is like, yeah, I don't know what you thought you were doing, but yeah, I'm winning at this point. But she has this long speech, and she says the line, Magneto was right, which is very telling. It's very, very telling that she said that, because at the very beginning of the season, she was not a fan of Magneto. So the fact that she said that, it says a lot. So we go to Magneto, and he goes all the way to what I'm assuming is like the North Pole or something, and lands, and he's just like, enough, and sends out this EMP pulse around the entire planet, knocking like the power out of power plants and all these other holding facilities. It's just all over the planet. And it's here where we get this the best freaking cameo of the entire series so far, because you see, when we see the reactions of people with this EMP, you see the GOAT, Spider-Man from the 90s. You see Christopher Daniel Barnes Spider-Man. He reacts to seeing Magneto's pulse going around the world. And it was so, even though he doesn't speak, it was so hype seeing him, because it's like, yo, he's back. And I'm really, 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 really hoping that this is a sign that his show will be coming back like the X-Men series did, because Spider-Man in this newer style looks freaking awesome. And he was just the best cameo amongst the other ones in this episode. We got to see Omega Red. We got to see that Bastion is actually on some type of council of sorts with Dr. Doom and Baron Zemo. It's a lot it's a lot of little Easter eggs, but I really want to make sure I mentioned the Spider-Man Easter egg because that was like the biggest one. Oh, and we also saw Silver Samurai react to it as well. But when Magneto let out this EMP, it pretty much knocked out all the humanoid sentinels. So he basically saved everybody. But in doing so, Wolverine is kind of looking, and he's just like, yeah. He was talking to Kurt, aka Nightcrawler, about Magneto, and Wolverine was like, yeah, Magneto just started a war. Basically, he just started a war. And after that happens, literally right after he says that, this ship lands in the X Mansion. And when Wolverine and Nightcrawler check to see what's going on, we see that it's Charles Xavier. He's back. And he's basically like, he hope he's not too late. And he says, to me, my X-Men, and basically uses his telepathy to call all the X-Men back to the X-Mansion. And that's where the episode pretty much closes. There's a lot of stuff I didn't mention, like Cyclops' action sequence with Cable and Jean. That was really cool. The action sequences on here, period, were cool. And, there's also the scene with Jubilee. Jubilee ends up getting taken hostage by the Sentinel, the humanoid Sentinel. I'm going to get their names at some point. My mind keeps on wanting to say Sentinel Advance, thinking about X-Men Legends, but that's not their names. But yeah, Jubilee gets taken hostage, her and Sunspot, so we got to see what's going to happen with that. And Storm still hasn't showed back up, and I'm like, come on, why are y'all making us wait on Storm? But, complain about that aside, the episode was freaking awesome. I mean, this is part one of the 3-part season finale, and it started off with a bang. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next, because this show has been hit after hit after hit. They have not missed, except for maybe that half and half episode with Storm and Jubilee. That one was weak, but other than that, this show has been on point the entire time. And it's been such a joy watching this series. It really has. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. And I'm really, really hoping that Spider-Man shows up again and that he talks, because that would be great. But that's pretty much the review. I'm going to try to... I'm late in the review at this point, but I'll try to have something more than just one image. One of you commented and said that the static image was not it with these X-Men reviews, and I responded to them. But again, I hope you all understand. Like I said, a lot of times I'm at work when I'm doing these reviews, so I don't have a lot of time to really put together a huge, slideshow or series of pictures like I would for like the comic videos, because I put more work into those sometimes. But I'll try to do something a little bit different with this particular review. So you all won't be bored looking at one image of Storm or Cyclops or what would probably be Spider-Man at this point. So I'll try to put together a more entertaining video for you all. But hit that like button if you like what you saw. Drop a comment to let me know what you thought of this episode. Subscribe for more. And remember, we have the high ground. Catch you later.